begin our program. I know that some of you may have found the location here to be a little bit difficult. We find it difficult, and we've been here for a number of years. So I'm glad that everybody was able to make it. Particularly, it's been a very busy week for most of us with Easter and with Passover, and so now we're back on our usual schedules. Before we start, I just wanted to say a couple of words of the importance of this book, and you'll hear from Ruperto Long, and he will tell you about the book, which we have outside on sale after. But we're living in a time where there are fewer and fewer Holocaust survivors. The biological clock just does not tick long enough, and we're reaching a point really where there are many fewer than there have been. And that means that there is more fertile ground for those who want to deny that the Holocaust happened or who want to marginalize the Holocaust. And we see it increasingly with the rise in anti-Semitism, but it's its own version of anti-Semitism. It seeks to erase history. It seeks to deny the victimhood of the Jewish people from 1939 to 1945. And so, with this book, this is another answer. It is another answer, another testimony to exactly what happened as we now find ourselves 81 years after the Holocaust, after 1945. So I want to thank the Israel Allies Foundation for joining us today. They've been great partners, and they do such important work really around the world, and we deeply appreciate their friendship. So I want to thank you all for being here today for this meaningful presentation. Before I introduce Ruperto, I'd like to call on, for a few words, I'd like to call on the ambassador of Uruguay to the United States, Daniel Castillos, who's joined us here today. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for being with us. The microphone is yours, please.
Good morning, everybody. As the Uruguayan ambassador here in the United States, it's really a privilege and a huge honor to be participating and allowing me to say a few words. It's not every day that we have such an important figure, Uruguayan figure of our literature. I will say more. I will say that Ruperto is not only a writer, is an intellectual. He's a person who has studied deeply so many fields and has published so many books in different topics. But I am particularly honored to be here today, and I thank B'nai B'rith International to allowing me to share the floor. In these times of volatile times, very complex times, very uncertain, and where there are wars, there are persecutions, there are things that put in tension, I will say, civilization as a whole. I think it's extremely important to have published this novel in English in this moment here in the States, because above all, is a novel, of course, but based on the real facts and a real history of people like you and me that traverse the worst possible nightmares, but always with the spirit of that love and freedom will prevail at last. So I wanted to say to Ruperto, although the first publication was a while ago in Uruguay, that we are very happy, and personally, I am very happy that this is happening today here in Washington, to be part of it. The Embassy of Uruguay is extremely honored and privileged to be supporting this presentation, because what I said at the beginning, Ruperto, moreover a very well-known political figure, is better known because of the quality of his works, his literature, and he has put Uruguay in the map as well. He's an ambassador of Uruguay. So Ruperto, thank you for giving this wonderful present. Thank you, Dan, for inviting us and allowing me to say a few words, and allowing me to re-encounter a good old friend of all good old times. We were young, Jorge Grünberg. We used to be, I will not say classmates, but we went to Oxford at University at the same year when we had, in my case, when I had hair, and not gray, but hair. And it's so nice to have you all here. Thank you so much, and congratulations, Ruperto, for everything what you have accomplished. It's really an honor for our country to have you here and to have the opportunity to taste the quality of your books and your novels, which are really outstanding. And I agree with what you say, Dan, about in the beginning. We have to remember the past, always. It's so important, because we cannot afford to commit same mistakes that we did and that had a severe cost for humanity as a whole. That's why it's that important, the book of Ruperto, because in the middle of that nightmare, of that period that was, I think, one of the worst times of humanity, love, freedom, and especially, love in a general sense. Love not only family, friends, partners, human beings. We have to rescue the importance of understand each other, and especially to love each other. Thank you. Thank you very much.
So it's very appropriate, actually, that we're meeting here today. There were two days of Holocaust remembrance. One is in January 27th, which is the International Day of Holocaust commemoration. But the other is the day which is observed by the Jewish community, by the State of Israel, and that is usually in April and May. The date varies depending because of the calendar which we use in our community. So we are here for not only an important presentation, but also for a very appropriate moment on our calendars. Well, several years ago, my colleague Adriana Commissar, who advises us on Latin American affairs from Argentina, told me about a remarkable book that at the time had not yet been published in English. She shared her efforts to help bring it to an American audience so that its story could reach far beyond its original borders. And I was truly delighted when she told me that this had finally become a reality. It's an honor for us to host this event at our headquarters and to help give the important work that is done in this book the audience that it so deeply deserves. Even though the book weaves together several parallel stories, a young girl who survived the Holocaust with her family, almost miraculously, navigating unimaginable dangers and enduring profound hardship. Her story is one of resilience, of courage, and ultimately, renewal. After the war, Charlotte rebuilt her life in Uruguay, where she became a leading figure in society and founded Ort University in Montevideo. We are especially honored to have with us today her son, Jorge Grünberg, president of ORT Uruguay. Jorge, we will call on you perhaps after to say a few words about your mother and about the book and about ORT University. What makes this book truly exceptional is not only its deeply human portrayal of the Shoah through the eyes of a child, but also its unique perspective, offering insight into how those events were perceived from Latin America. It is both a powerful narrative and an invaluable historical testimony. So it's now my great pleasure to introduce the author of this extraordinary work, Ruperto Long. Ruperto?
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, dear CEO of rith International, Dan Mariaschin, authorities and staff of the organization. It's a privilege and honor for me to launch this book in this organization that I deeply admire, with more than 200 years of life, and with whom I have always a very close relation throughout the years and helping to do things together. And as Dan said, it's also very important to be launching this book in this country and in this moment, in Yom HaShoah, that is a day of remembrance, a week, a month of remembrance of things that we cannot forgive at all. And as he also mentioned, I would like to say thank you to some people from this house, like Adriana Camisar, that's a wonderful person that is doing an incredible job in all these fields, and also Eduardo Kong, Tobai Shifter, and some other people close to B'nai B'rith, and that also put their effort to help this to happen. I want to express my gratitude to the presence of the ambassador of Uruguay to the United States, Daniel Castillos, his wife, Eleonora, and His Excellency, is not only a pleasure to have you here, but all you said, too much, too much for me, but I really appreciate it. And also to say thank you to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Uruguay that declared this event and the other launching events that we are having in New York this next week of ministerial interest for the country. And also I want to express my gratitude to World Art, that was the home of Charlotte, that is the person that gave the heart to the book. She's obviously by far the main character of the book, and she gave a lot to it. And we have here his son, as it was mentioned, that is in some way part of the story, and his wife here with us too, so also my deep gratitude. And also to Geffen Publishing House to take the decision to publish this book. And last but not least, to my friends of Israel Allies Foundation. I perfectly remember that not far from here, just some blocks away from here, in the Library of Congress, 18 years ago, May 22nd, 2008, together with some parliamentarians of the United States, some parliamentarians of the Knesset, and just a handful of others from the rest of the world, including myself, we put the cornerstone of this organization that now has more than 2,000 members, all of them parliamentarians and ministers from different countries, inactive, and from 65 countries. In that occasion, I had the responsibility to pronounce a prayer for peace, as it was called. And I said in one of the sentences, "O Lord, thank you for allowing us to participate in this meeting where we are working for peace and tolerance in the world, and particularly in the Middle East, for the Jewish people, for the state of Israel and its neighbors." 18 years later, we could say exactly the same, but strongly, with even more conviction if possible, and we will finally achieve someday this so necessary dream of having an Israel living peaceful with its friend in a recognized territory and all that we share. And then, let's go to the book now. Mm-hmm. And I would say, first of all, that The Girl That Watched the Trains Depart is a novel, it's a story, but it's a story that has a lot to do with life, with real life. So the first thing to think about is how it all began, how I discovered the story, the backstage of this book that has later have such a long journey. And I knew Charlotte, this person, but I knew her as the head and the founder of the biggest private university in our country, that is Ort University. I knew her since more than 20 years. We have done things together even, but in fact, I really thought I knew her, but I didn't know her at all, finally. But one day, they invited me to the house of Charlotte because a visiting professor was coming from another university, so I came. And I was the first to arrive. So we need to talk about something, and instead of talking about the weather and the view of the sea, the typical Uruguayan topics, when we need to talk about something, we talk about that. Instead of that, I don't know why, I said, "Charlotte, where you were during the war?" She was surprised. She didn't know what to say, but she said, "Okay, I was from Liège, the city from Belgium. The Nazis invaded Belgium. I was 8 years old, and then things began to change, and my father, Leon, took the wise decision, all together with my mother, Blima, and my brother, Raymond, to get false papers. We became the Wins family, and we left Belgium, and we went first to Paris, and then to several other places, heading from one place to another, during 4 years. Oh, Charlotte, that's surprising, but hidden where? And she said, okay. For example, in Lyon, I stayed almost 1 year inside a closet. How a closet? Yes, like this one. And he showed me a common closet, like in any house. And not only myself, I was in one and in the other one was my brother Raymond. Okay, I cannot believe that. Oh, really, Charlotte? But then the bell rang, the visitors came, and the spell was broken. So, but from that moment on, I knew this was a story that has to be told. So, some days later, I asked her for a meeting in the Ort University. I went to talk with her, and I told her, we need to tell this story. Charlotte was very nice, full of light, but she was firm in her decisions. And she said, no, I have never told this story to my husband, to my son, only the titles, general ideas, but not the story. So I won't do it in this case. Oh, it was a big disappointment. Okay. I know that after that, Jorge, his wife, his husband, Jose, talk a little. I don't know what I did. But one day, I was in the middle of a meeting, a ministerial meeting, and I was with this apparatus, and so Charlotte, why Charlotte now? What's happening? So I left the meeting, and I talked with her, and she said, okay, I changed my mind. I will tell you the story. And then we began a trip of more than 2 years, meeting every month. And in the meanwhile, she was telling me things, and I traveled to the places, came with pictures, photographs. So it was an exciting, sensitive, wonderful trip through time and geography to see all the hidden stories, the small details, many things that you will see in the book. And there is a writer that I admire called Javier Cercas. He's a Spaniard, okay, I can see you know him. And he has said, the best literature is not the one that sounds like literature, but the one that sounds like truth. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if this is good literature, but at least it tries to sound. I could add that this smells like life, like life. And so right from the beginning, I thought, okay, I need to talk with as most characters I could be able to talk. Charlotte, and through Charlotte, many other ones that I can. So despite visiting many places, Memorial de la Shoah, Yad Vashem, several times, all the places where you can find information, besides that, try to talk with real people that participated. An architect called Mies van der Rohe, probably you know him also from creator of the Bauhaus. He has to leave Germany too because he was persecuted by the Nazis. He was not from Jewish origin, but anyway, he has to leave. Used to say the following, usually we say the devil is hidden in the details. That means that if you don't pay attention to the details, things can be important, but at the end, there is something that doesn't close very well. And then he adds to the sentence, but in the details, you can find God. That's his sentence. The devil is hidden in the detail, but in the details, you can find God. And then talking with Charlotte through 2 years and with a lot of intensity, I discovered many details, and in some of them you can see the hand of God or something similar at least. And I will tell you only one of these stories. When they were in Grenoble, they were hidden as always. The small girl, in that time maybe 10, doesn't know what to do. So she said, Blima, her mother, said, okay, I will build you a dominoes, you call it dominoes? These dominoes in English, domino in Spanish, dominoes. I will prepare you a dominoes. Okay, but there's a problem. We don't have paper. In those times, they didn't have paper. So she went to the street, take some risk, and they got pamphlets. Pamphlets that were put there by the Nazis that were occupying the southern part of France. And then she used to get some of these papers. And then what she did, she cut them, and in one side it was the pamphlet, and in the other side she built the small cards for the domino. And so Charlotte was very happy, and she used to play with another small girl that was hidden in the next, with the domino. But the incredible thing is that the domino, in one side, was a pamphlet telling the French people you have to denounce the Jewish that are hidden. And in the other side, Blima was able to build something full of life, to continue to make her daughter happy. If a writer could write that, they say, okay, he's an imagination, he's a very imaginative guy. No, that was the truth. And you can see how strong the resilience that you mentioned was from people like Blima. That was a common woman, that your grandmother, that she was able to invent those things in that unbelievable situations. With her, we also began to discover some things. For example, her uncle, was living almost with them in Liège, in Belgium, studying engineering. But when the war began, he disappeared. So the only idea Charlotte has is, my beloved uncle, that was more or less like a brother, a bigger brother, disappeared. And that was all. She didn't know anything more about him. So we began to push here and there. And finally, one day, I got a message, I remember perfectly, from Yad Vashem. We have found some clues about Alter. Alter, was the name of this uncle. And then we began to build a puzzle. We got some other pieces from some other organizations. We get some documents. And at the end of the day, we have more or less an idea of how was the life of Alter. And Alter was a tall guy. She had a picture. She had a picture. He was tall. He was handsome. He was very popular in the university between the rest of the girls there. So we knew some things, and we knew that he has disappeared. And then we began to build. And then one day, Charlotte told me, okay, you have returned me my uncle, my beloved uncle, that was more or less like a brother for me. You have returned it to me. And I say, oh, that's wonderful. Maybe it's too much. But that was what happened. And it's true that Alter began to get his own life through the book. One day, I was invited to give a lecture to a high school that was only of Catholic girls. It's the only one that we have in our country still now. All the other today are mixed, like public schools and public and private schools. All of them are mixed. Only this organization. So I said, oh, what I'm going to find here? I am Christian, but that was like entering a monastery. So what's going to happen here? I don't know. So I arrived. It was like a gym full of young girls of 14, 15, 16, or less. And then one that was the leader, she stand up and she said, Ruperto, the first thing that I want to tell you is that we are in love with Alter. That was the first sentence. Okay, I said, the Catholic girls are changing a lot. But the nice thing about this story is that Alter was living in some way. He was, again, a person that some girls from other generations are thinking, okay, he's a handsome guy, and he did all the things that you wrote in the book. So, I would like to say a couple more things about the book, and I don't want to take too much time. I don't know how we are. But I want to say this, I think is important, and it has to do, after I found these other characters that we will try, I said, okay, but this event, the Holocaust, was probably the worst moment in the history of mankind. And Charlotte was in the middle of that. And this event was in the middle of World War II. So I need to know much more of how was really the war happening. So I begin to talk with people, and I discovered a person that is called Domingo, Domingo López Delgado, that is one of the volunteers of Uruguay that went to fight. He, with 24 years, he left his country, his family, he crossed the ocean, he entered the French Foreign Legion, and he participated actively, and he got a lot of decorations and all that. But the interesting thing is the following. Through him, I began to see how was that reality of the war. Because Domingo, with the French Foreign Legion, was in the middle of the Sahara Desert in the Battle of Bir Hakeim. He participated in the Battle of Bir Hakeim. And then he began to tell me also details about this. For example, he told me there was a very famous the leader that was Amil Akbari, Dimitri Amil Akbari. Okay, I have heard about him, but who is him? Well, in France, maybe they tell you, okay, we had Napoleon, then we had the famous generals, then we had de Gaulle, and then we had Dimitri Amil Akbari. He was the head of the Foreign Legion, he was a leader, and he was probably one, altogether with Koenig, the two main figures in Bir Hakeim. Bir Hakeim was maybe altogether with El Alamein were the turning point of World War II. Bir Hakeim stopped the Africa Corps, and in El Alamein was the first victory in any front during World War II. And there we had our friend Domingo López Delgado with several other people like this Dimitri Amil Akbari that used to wear a green cloak, oak here. It was something, a strange figure of other times. And he told me many interesting things. I talked with Domingo also many hours, and he told me many things about those difficult times, because they were completely surrounded by the Africa Corps in Bir Hakeim and outnumbered 10-1. It was impossible to survive. They almost didn't have water, ammunition, but at the end of the day, they survived. You would ask me how, and then you will have to read the book. If not, I will tell you everything. But it's also another incredible story. And here to this, Domingo, some other Uruguayans, some other Latin Americans were fighting in a part of Bir Hakeim. In another part of Bir Hakeim called Bir El Armat, who was fighting? Was fighting a Jewish brigade of 400 youngsters that came from Tel Aviv, under Major Felix Liebman. He was the head of that brigade, and they were using the flag that was not allowed, but they were using because General Koenig, that was later a great friend of Israel, allowed them, okay, you can use it. And they were using the flag that with the Star of David. So they were fighting against the Nazis, and they even interchanged some negotiations, the Nazis, and in the other hand, these 400 people with a flag with the Star of David. That's something unbelievable. Unbelievable. I got some details about that story that you will find also, but it's something really... So there were some Uruguayans and some Jewish fighting all together for freedom in that so difficult moment. But there were other small details, and is the last one I will tell because it's a little funny. Domingo, when I met him, was 95. Her wife was 93. But what happened? That in that time, in the Foreign Legion, there was the only woman that was in the history of the Foreign Legion, called Susan Travers. She was British, and it was the only woman in the whole history. And she was there in Bir Hakeim. So they were surrounded by the Nazis with the Africa Corps, but they had to talk about something because that's a human being. And so they talked some things related with Susan Travers. And Susan Travers and Dimitri Amilagvari, you know, that's human nature. So what he used to say to his wife, 93, please go to Tita, go to get me a tea for Ruperto and myself. And so when she left to get the tea, she began to tell me the small details. And she said, no, they were lovers. They were lovers, Amilagvari and Susan Travers. Sometime later, Susan Travers published a book, and in some way she admitted that thing. So when I was writing my book, I was able to find the daughter of Dimitri Amilagvari. Amilagvari died, unfortunately, in El Alamein. In the moment of great triumph, he died. But his daughter, called Tamar, she was living in Prague, and I found her. Then we met in Paris and all that. And Susanna, my wife, was with me in the meeting with her. And I said, please, Susanna, don't say anything about Susan Travers, because she is the daughter of Amilagvari, and you will put her in a difficult situation. So she was talking with me, and she was a woman with a lot of authority, and she said, oh, this book, she was fascinated with the story of Domingo, by the way, because Domingo was not a friend, but he knew his commander, so I gave some details about all that. And then they say, okay, you will find many books about Dimitri. Most of them are wrong. Have you read the one by Susan Travers? I say, okay, yes. And she said, okay, that's all true. So finally it looks like it was true. But after so many years. So just to end, well, I got all the voices. I tried to put them together, following William Faulkner, the master, trained. So you will find a polyphonic, a choral novel with the voices as they were. So that I think it was very important. And even mainly the voices maybe of young children, like this wonderful Charlotte. And there is a final question. Well, okay, you have this story, but this story are connected between them? The story of Charlotte is connected with the story of Domingo, for example. And then is when the miracle happened, because that was something absolutely out of anything that you may think. And, well, the answer is in the book, again. But it's surprising, but you can see how these stories can be connected. When the book was finished, I took it to Marcos Aguinis. He was the first reader. Probably you know him, wonderful Argentinian writer. He is from Jewish origin, and he wrote many masterpieces. And then after we met in Palermo, all that, and then later he wrote me a nice letter, and he used a sentence. This is a moving, a touching book full of light, full of light. So I hope that the light of Charlotte and all these other characters can be in the book. And I think that's the reason that the book is traveling to so many countries, around 25 now that has been published. But obviously the United States and in English is a really important way, and I hope we all together we can keep pushing that light. So I finish with a story that is the following. In these trips up and down, when we presented the book, we launched the book in Romania, they say, okay, we are going to do it in the Romanian parliament. That is the biggest in the world. It was built in other sad times, but today it's a democratic parliament, and it's absolutely enormous building. And then there it was full, but not of parliamentarians. It was full of mainly young people, 15, 16, 18, 20, young people. And so we have the event, and at the end of the event, these people form a long row with a book, trying to get the autograph and change some words. And right at the beginning, it appeared a young girl, let's say, 16, something like that she said, okay, Ruperto, I read your book. Can I give you a hug? And so I was surprised. Someone that I have never seen in my life, completely 10,000 kilometers from home, that just because she had read a book, she wants to give me a hug. Oh, it's an honor for me. Please go ahead. Let's go to. And then all that long row of I don't know how many young people, boys and girls, all of them, the autograph and the hug. And so those are the miracles that a book can achieve, heart-to-heart communication. I hope you will find something of that in this book. Thank you very much.
So we have time for a couple of questions, and then we want to hear from Jorge. So the floor is open. Anybody?
How much did you know about the Holocaust before you wrote the book, and how did it impact your life or change it, if it did?
Well, I knew many things before, because I have, for other reasons, but completely different reasons, not emotional reasons, I have been working a lot in many things related with the Jewish people and Israel. And I have traveled a lot of times to Israel, so I knew many things. I have visited many times Yad Vashem before the book. I was co-founder of Israeli Foundation. I was the head of the Cultural Association Israel Uruguay. I was achieved the Jerusalem Prize many years before writing the book. So I had a relation. I knew many things. But one thing is to read the facts, the numbers, the information. Another is this one. When you talk to people that live or were very close to the others that live those situations, and then, my goodness, it's another thing. So for me, the big change in writing in this book, later I wrote another one that is right now beginning to walk, it was to be able to talk with people that lived or were close relatives of those. That was the big change. So now I don't know if I know too much, but at least I can feel more or less, because it's impossible to be there. It's impossible. We talked that this for return, survive, were able to build a life, but we're more or less the only one in a whole family. So it's difficult but I think this emotional approach is very important in relation with Dan said at the beginning. In these times, it's not only a question of figures. Okay, the figures show that it was the worst disaster in the history of mankind. But let's go to people, the children, their fathers.
Yes. Go ahead.
Roberto, Amparo Macadar, in case Ademanino, in case you don't recognize me. I wanted to say, I was once in what I think might have been the most beautiful library I've ever visited, which might be a little bit off the beaten path, because people don't necessarily think of the library in Helsinki as being the most beautiful, but for whomever that has been there, it's absolutely beautiful. There are like robots that actually put the books back. And there was a Spanish section. The section of books in Spanish had less than 10 books. And it had Vargas Llosa, Garcia Marquez, and it had your book.
Oh.
And I was incredibly proud. And I just wanted to say, because to your point about like let the light travel, I can tell that light is probably in places that you can't even imagine, in a beautiful, beautiful shelf in Helsinki.
That's wonderful. Thank you. It's a present. What you say, that's wonderful. Yes, I'm very glad. Yeah, Helsinki. Okay.
Anyone else? Okay. So, Ruperto, thank you very much. And we're going to call Jorge up. I just want to say one thing, Ruperto, about the dominoes story. Because when I was growing up, and I'm sure this is true of many of you and sitting here, the first thing you hear is that 6 million Jews were killed, which is 6 million. And that hasn't changed, except for the Holocaust deniers. But for us, 6 million, it's a big number. What we've learned over the past number of years is that there were 6 million stories. There really are no two stories exactly alike. From my experience over 50 years of working professionally in the Jewish community, every story is different. And we heard one today. We heard one about the dominoes. And this is what personalizes this tremendous loss, this tremendous tragedy that we know occurred. So now I'd like to call on Jorge Grünberg to tell us from his perspective as the son, what did you hear growing up? And tell us what you would like us to take away from hearing Ruperto today and from the book.
So good morning to you all. I would like to thank Dan and his wonderful team for helping us set up this meeting. They are really a wonderful team. I'm happy they are on our side. From what I heard, Dan green-lighted this meeting from a bunker in Tel Aviv under the ballistic missiles. So that's really something. And I want to thank the Uruguayan ambassador, my former classmate. Here in the Uruguayan ambassador, you might understand why my mother was so proud to be a Uruguayan. I was born in Uruguay, so I am a Uruguayan. I never thought of having any other nationality, but my mother was a Uruguayan by choice, and she was very proud to be one. Actually, Uruguayan and Jews have more links than what appear in the surface. We are the only two people in the history of mankind to have an exodus. So we have Artigas, which is our Moses, and our people at the time, they didn't cross a river, but it was an exodus anyway. And so thank you all for coming today, and thank you to all the persons and institutions who have helped us, such as the Israel Allies Foundation. Let me tell you, first of all, that it doesn't seem to, but Ruperto is a dangerous person. When he called me and said, the book is out in English, we have to go in April to the US, I said, no way. No way, because the academic year is starting, and in our university, the sentence for leaving during the start of the academic year is the death sentence. So nobody can leave. But here I am. And after I accepted to come under pressure, he said, and your wife has to come as well. So she's here as well. So he's a dangerous person, and this is part of the history of the book. Because my mother, for several decades, never spoke about what happened. I don't know why. I read about this. I have the titles during the 96 and 90, during the 70s. Yes, it was during the War of the 7 Days. I found her, I was a little kid, and I found her very, she was intensely moved by what was happening, and she started telling me that it looks like this is going to happen again. I didn't understand at the time what she meant, but she was sort of looking at an Holocaust again. It was 67. For decades, she didn't speak. There were only these flashes, like in 67. I read about it when I was a bit older, and I read about survivor's guilt. Some people felt guilt because others have died and they have survived. Maybe this is an explanation. There was also this hierarchy of pain. She said, I don't deserve any attention because the people who were killed and the people who were in the camps are the ones who deserve the real attention. We were never in the camps. We survived. We had a tough time. I don't know. Maybe those were explanations as well. At some point, Ruperto came into our lives, and he started talking to her. He wanted to write the book, and he called me and said, your mother is against. She doesn't want to cooperate. What can you do? And I said, Ruperto, if you have met my mother, you know I cannot do anything. She's over her own mind. But somehow he achieved her approval. He obtained her approval, and for 2 years, they sat in her living room talking. My father, who is still with us, fortunately, is now 95. So this is the reason he's not coming. He hasn't come. But his mission during these briefing sessions was bringing the chocolate cake.
Very important. Very important.
Absolutely. So because I think you needed this stamina to help going through all this hell that he was listening to. So after the book came out, the family, my kids, our 3 children started to ask, why did grandmother, why didn't she speak to us? Why didn't she speak to us? Why to Ruperto? Ruperto is not a member of the family. Well, he's not a professional historian. I don't know, he's not an interrogator from the police, so why to him? And it was a conundrum, so we didn't know what to answer, and we didn't really know what to do. So we were stuck there, and we decided that the only way forward was to designate him as a member of the family. So he's now my brother.
Thank you very much.
So now my mother spoke to one of her honorary sons. So there is no cognitive dissonance now. So after the book came out, many people, and the book was a bestseller unexpectedly. My mother was very suspicious. She wasn't very optimistic. She said, nobody will want to read this. And, when you read about the story of Elie Wiesel or Primo Levi, you say, well, you don't know if your story is going to resonate, but it did. It was a bestseller in Spanish. It was sold all over Latin America, in Spain. It was translated into Italian, and finally to Hebrew. She was still with us when it came into Hebrew. It meant a lot to her. Unfortunately, it was during the pandemic, so we couldn't make it to Israel, but still, it's in Hebrew now. Now it's in English. So people kept asking me, was it good for her? Which is absolutely a general question for survivors. Was it therapeutic? Was it good for her to have all this coming out at almost 80 years old? Or actually was it bad because all these memories came back flowing again? Because she didn't want to remember very much, and she didn't want to speak at all about this, because she used to say, you cannot look forward and backward at the same time. It's like driving. You cannot look backward and forward at the same time. That was her way. You cannot hate all the time. You cannot forgive, but you cannot hate all the time either. So if you want to build a life and don't give a victory to the ones who destroyed our youth, then you have to look forward. And forward she looked. She established the new present Ort in Uruguay in 1975. And at a certain point she said, this country needs a technological university, a private university. At the time, it was, everybody said this is impossible, absolutely impossible. In Uruguay, there was only one university. Private endeavors are seen with some suspicion in Uruguay, and it's an understatement. And private universities is even worse. And a Jewish private university, I wouldn't say in any moment it was a problem to be a Jewish university, but it was connected to a religious identity. So people didn't like any. Uruguay is a very secular country, and I'm happy that it is that way. But everybody said it is against. I mean, you shouldn't go for it, even in the Jewish community. So we had all these leaders coming, and they liked Ort at the time, but it was a small technical school, and they were telling my mother, don't go for it, it won't be possible. And there were some rough encounters at the time. And I remember I was there as a young man, and there was this person who was quite aggressive in saying, don't go for it, you don't have to do it. And she said, look, the Gestapo couldn't stop me, so leave the room. So just to wrap up, let me share with you, after the book came out, we had these long chats with my mother about this topic, about her life experience. And she had 3 takeaways from her experience after opening up, after the book came out, after we had 10,000 messages, because I used to filter the messages in the social sphere, because I was afraid that there were coming all these denials and everything. Never happened. Mostly positive messages. It's a history of, it's a story of resilience and going forward in life. So many people connected this in the messages I read before giving them to her. People coming out of diseases, people who were in prison in Uruguay during military time, all this sort of, I mean, people were connecting this book to any other kind of experience that had nothing to do with Judaism or the Holocaust or the Shoah, whatever. So takeaways, we had all these long chats. One small piece is that they were saved along the way by a Catholic priest. And so she always said, there is good everywhere. They were trying to go into Switzerland. They were betrayed by the passeurs, the ones who, you know, they sell you these supposedly tickets. And they were betrayed. They were left in what it was called at the time the red zone, which is the zone between France and Switzerland. And they were left stranded in a field very close to a town. And the priest of the town hid them in the church for a few days until they found a truck to go back to Lyon. And actually, I helped her find the priest. We couldn't find it because she couldn't remember what was exactly the church. Years later, she told this story to the Archbishop of Montevideo, and she spoke at many churches, at several churches after. So the takeaways. Well, these long chats, several takeaways. They can be politically maybe not perfectly perfect, I don't know, for some of you. She was not completely satisfied with never again. Our Jewish slogan, the never again. She was not completely satisfied. She said never again is a wish. She didn't say we should think it, but she said it's a wish. We should say never again defenseless. That's a call for action. That's the first takeaway. We talked a lot about this. Was the Shoah a deficit of human rights, or was it a deficit of strength? I think she leaned towards it was a deficit of strength. You have to be self-reliant in many ways and have allies as well, and be right and be moral as well. So first takeaway, never again defenseless. The second takeaway, again, I don't want to be politically incorrect, but I was asked to share the takeaways, is don't sell your soul. Because she saw with her own eyes in Belgium how many Jews were happy or were prepared to transform, so to speak, their Judaism into politically acceptable ways, thinking this was going to save them. They didn't. So you could be, and we talked a lot about this, from the left of the left spectrum up to the right, ultra-right spectrum. You could be very religious, non-religious. You could be connected to the Jewish community, non-connected to the Jewish community. You could be a Zionist. You could be an anti-Zionist. You could be a Bund supporter. You could be a communist. You could be anything. As long as you were Jewish, you were going to be summoned to the labor camp. You were going to lose your house. You were going to risk your life, and later on, deported. So don't sell your soul. It won't save you. And the third takeaway was that memory is not all. For memory to be really useful, there has to be learning. You have to learn from what happened, not only to remember. Remembering what happened is important as long as it is a precursor to learning. And I think we can connect this to what is happening at the moment. I don't think any time in life there were so many Holocaust museums, Holocaust memorials, Holocaust books, Holocaust courses in universities and schools. And still, it doesn't seem that we have, and people have learned enough about it. Actually, my mother used to say, she was still there in October 7, 2023, she was still with us, and her first words were the world hasn't learned anything. So thank you very much, Dan, again. Thank you.
Okay, Jorge, thank you very much, really. And Ruperto, you've made a tremendous contribution here in terms of memory and learning, if I can pick up on what Jorge said. I gave speeches for many years, and I used to say, there'll come a time when there'll be no one there to show their tattoo from the camp, or there will be no one there to tell the story, as Charlotte has told her story. And it's coming rapidly in the lifetimes of some of the younger people, and maybe not so younger people in this audience. We're going to reach that day. So what you've done here is made a tremendous contribution to understanding and to remembering, to learning the lessons, the takeaways, the excellent takeaways that Jorge has conveyed to us. We wish you a lot of good fortune with the English edition and with many more international editions. We hope to hear more about it. I could think of no more appropriate and I would say touching way for us to observe Yom HaShoah than to hear this remarkable story. So thank you to all of you for coming. We want to wish everyone a good weekend, and thank you again for being with us.